From the creators of the original Cheat Sheet Rankings, this is the Fantasy Index Podcast. Brought to you by Fantasy Index, the original and best since 1987. Now your hosts, Luke Wilson and Colt Williams.
Good evening and welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Index Podcast. We have for you tonight Colt, myself's start and sit picks for Week 3, heading into the Week 3 action amid a menagerie, a medley of roster-crippling injuries and missed practices and limited sessions and all the fun and games we pray isn't going to happen this year every September, and then, of course, it always does. Colt Williams with me tonight. Happy birthday, Colt. Tomorrow is Colt Williams' birthday, and we wish him well. I'm sure the fantasy gods will smile upon your picks tonight in honor of your big day tomorrow. Before we launch into our starts and sits, Colt, how about, we always talk about waiver wire stuff, but we don't always talk about the waiver wire players that we get, and this just, it felt like a kind of a consequential week, to me anyway, in the fantasy calendar, waiver wire wise. So I'll just real quick run through some of the players that you went after and that you did get in leagues, and then the ones that you struck out on that hurt you the most.
Yeah, so thanks for the happy birthday. I appreciate that. It's
in the podcast.
Yeah, so yeah, we're just, the Patriots play on my birthday, and they're my team, and my birthday will be ruined come 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. It is the Jets. If there were a team to try to beat, man, there are better ones, but
Jets sure tried to go 0-2. They came real close.
They really tried. Looking at my waivers, so in a Superflex league, Andy Dalton was out there, and people were really looking at him. He was kind of the cream of the crop, if you will. Went for $60 in a $100 budget. So all these will be on a $100 budget in mine. Yeah. $60. There's a person who lost Tua, so it kind of made sense that he really needed to pay up. Next person was like $20. So did he overpay? Certainly, but he got his guy, so you can't really complain there. Carson Steele also went in that league.
Oh, jeez. I saw some silly money for Steele this week. Oh, man.
Do you want to guess what his was? So if you saw some silly ones, maybe I'm curious what you'll figure this one is. $49.
I mean, that's silly. It's not as silly as the silliness that I saw in some of the we have a competitive circuit in the Fantasy Index Discord called the Fantasy Index Circuit, where you play in a redraft league, and if you do well in that league, you move up to a next higher level of difficulty the following year. You do poorly, you get busted down. In the lowest rung of leagues, I saw Steele go for $98. So that's
$100 budget.
That's too much. I mean, he's got $1 left, so
no,
that's too much. That was too much rocket ship. But Steele flew off the racks. Obviously, Kareem Hunt as well. I didn't go after any Hunt or any Steele personally, to be honest. Mostly because I knew I wasn't going to spend enough, so I was like, "Why? I'm not even going to waste my clicks." But it's a gut thing. I mean, sure, either one of them could be flexible starting next week, but I just I had too tough of a time seeing it to take a stab. Personally.
I was able to lure some guys onto my team. I got your boy Whittington for $0. $0.
Nice.
No other bids.
You're coming around.
So I got him, and and then I got P. Ryan for $0 as well. The other person did a bid, but they just had too many people on their team. But yeah, Carson Steele, it's so funny. You see him in one league go for $98 or $49, and then in another one of my leagues, he goes for $13 and only 2 people bid on him. So they dropped Jerome Ford for him too. And I'm like, ooh, I am going to.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that. So the biggest thing you guys can do in your leagues, I know this can be coming out maybe a little bit late for a lot of people, but make sure you watch who they drop, because Tajay Spears, Jerome Ford, the Steelers defense, Blake Corum, like if these are guys that can fit onto your team, like if they fit your team's makeup, go and get them, because sometimes the waiver guys, just aren't as good. I picked up Javonte off of waivers. This is a 12-team league, not like an 8-team or 6-team or anything like that. So Bears defense was out there. Yeah, I mean, just a lot of names. But yeah, Carson Steele was the highest one that was bid on that week, and $13. So
yeah, brief aside, the Bears' upcoming schedule, DST-wise, is golden. They get the Rams with no receivers. They have the Panthers coming up. They have the Jags, who are looking very wobbly. So, and I saw the Bears out there for in a lot of my leagues too. I was like, what is going on here? Is nobody watching this defense? So, yeah, if you see the Bears out there, get off your keister and go get them, folks, because that could be a very nice multi-week stream at the very least. I got Ty Chandler in a 10-team league. I dumped Chase Brown for him. I still like Brown, but I like Chandler just as much. And the wind is blowing Chandler's way much more right now. I did get some very expensive Skylar Thompson in a couple of Superflex leagues. I blocked the Bryce Young owner, who was on his last $67, by going $68 for Andy Dalton.
There you go.
And I at the time I was like, this is stupid. I'm wasting this money for a guy who's going to play like 1 or 2 games. And this is, I'm trying to speak it into existence a little bit. Sure. There's not a lot of scenarios where the Panthers necessarily are going to bring Bryce back onto the field anytime soon. Like, if the Panthers turn it around this week and they give the Raiders an actual game, even if they lose, but if they make a game of it, well, they're going to keep Dalton out there because it's going to keep the other 52 on the roster from checking out early and just saying, all right, well, free agency is in March. I just got to wait this thing out. And if they continue to be terrible, then they certainly have no incentive to bring him back out there. So, short of an Andy Dalton injury, which is totally possible, I don't know what Bryce Young's path back to the field looks like in the near term, Colt. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I don't see a path where they go back to him outside of injury. Like, Dalton would have to be injured for them to go back to Young. It's so funny we talk about Andy Dalton. I didn't think we were going to be at this point in the season where Andy Dalton's name was going to be coming up in the third week of the podcast. But it is funny. He was available in a dynasty league, and I spent all of my fab for him just because it's such a deep roster league where it's like, there's no one else I could see that I'm going to spend this on. Yep. It's a super flex too, so it kind of made sense. And then in another league, I put him on the waiver wire as soon as he was announced the starter, or on the trade block rather. And I put him on the trade block as soon as he was announced the starter. And people were like, he was rostered? And yeah, it was me. I have all the dirty quarterbacks. You need second, third string quarterbacks? I got them. So you need your Skylar Thompson? Got him.
Don't let fantasy football podcast hosts into your fantasy leagues, especially into your dynasty leagues, is the takeaway, I think, there.
Yeah.
I also consolidated some Sam Darnold, and especially in leagues where I decided, you know what, I'm good with Caleb Williams as my QB1 going into the season. That feels right. I now have Sam Darnold in a couple of those leagues. I scooped up Derek Carr anywhere he was still hanging out because there were still some people who were doubting after week 1. Ain't no doubters left anymore. And what else? My main redraft league, the League of Death. What did I got boxed out of everything. I almost got Hunter Henry, missed him by $1. That kind of hurt. But I've got Bowers, so it was a vanity. It was a vanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, Carson Steele in that league went for $23, and with 6 fab bids. So yeah, everybody wanted a piece. All right. Well, that's a little snapshot of how
we're doing.
What the pros experience was with waiver wires this week. Colt, do you want to run us through? Obviously, we are all still reeling, some more than others, from the recent hurricane of injuries, season enders and season wounders alike. Who is looking iffy right now for week 3 that didn't necessarily get, the Pacheco or Cup type injury last week?
Yeah, so some of the Wednesdays, DNPs did not practice. Honestly, you can say all the Seahawks, it feels like. But DK Metcalf with the hand injury. Kenneth Walker still dealing with that oblique injury. Nico Collins, so this is one obviously he's got you here so far through the past 2 weeks. He's got a hip and a foot injury. It's Wednesday, so it's a mild. You pay attention to this because they weren't necessarily up on a lot of people's radars. AJ Brown, we kind of already expect him to miss another week. He was saying that on Monday Night Football that it's something that's going to hold him out, but it could very well come out and play. I'll have to double check on the time that he plays, but hamstring injury that we discussed, CeeDee Lamb with an ankle, Keenan Allen with the heel, which that one's probably more important than I think a lot of us think. I think it was last start sit we were talking about. I had Caleb Williams as my sit, and I was saying Roma Dunte probably wouldn't play, and Keenan Allen may play, and if he does, he's limited. Turns out it was the opposite of that. Keenan Allen did not play. And yeah, Keenan Allen this is the same thing he was dealing with, just as you mentioned. And it worries me. It certainly worries me if I have Keenan Allen in any leagues. Tajay Spears with an ankle injury. This is worth noting, but Dolphins left tackle Teron Armstead, shoulder injury. If they're going to be, they want to keep Skylar up, at all, or keep the run game going. Like it's a huge piece to the offensive line. Yep. Jordan Addison with an ankle injury and Jaden Reed with a calf injury. So.
Yeah, Armstead's looking on the wrong side of a 50-50 call. He was in and out of the game against the Bills on Thursday night. So the fact that even 6 days later he's still a DNP with his track record, it's not looking great. So yeah, how do you feel Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle as probably owning them at least in a league or two, or you can at least understand what it would be like if you don't. How would you be feeling about them here in a game where, the Seahawks defense isn't daunting, but...
Yeah, so Tyreek Hill, I don't see a way where you could possibly bench him, but Waddle, that's somewhere where you could probably go somewhere else. I don't know how far you go with Waddle. Would you go JSN versus Miami in that same matchup, or Waddle against the Seahawks? Like JSN just popped off for, whatever it was, 100 yards and 10 catches. So
that's a really tough one. The Dolphins' pass defense has actually been very good so far. They smothered the Jaguars in Week 1. The Bills didn't need to throw. It didn't wind up needing to throw, but also when they did, it didn't really work. So if there's a part of the Miami defense you want to be a little bit nervous about, it is the pass defense. Obviously in PPR, you got to chase that volume that JSN showed last week, especially how backloaded it was. It kind of felt like, the Seahawks are finding their footing here. They're showing us what they're really gonna be about when push comes to shove in 2024. But that's tough. Waddle's been very good so far. I think he's caught almost every target that he's had so far in the season. I'm not really necessarily downgrading either of them that much on the arrival of Skylar Thompson. Sure,
really,
I'm nervous, but what have the Saints shown us if not the best schemes in the league? You can trust them a little bit more than Malik Willis is now a spot starter for the Well, even that's not a great example because the Packers are a good scheme, but. Dalton for the Panthers, I don't trust that at all. I'm cautiously optimistic relative to what we just saw from Bryce Young, but Mike McDaniel, with everything else more or less intact, again, Teron Armstead's iffiness is not great. I'm willing to give Thompson a real shot here to show that he can hold down the fort for however long it needs holding down. So yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know. I'd have to think about it honestly, because Waddle versus JSN here is like a 50-50 ball to me.
Let me throw out just 2-3 more names because other people are going to have the same kind of dilemma. Let's go Waddle again in Seattle, or Michael Pittman versus Chicago. Michael Pittman's been awful so far this season.
100% Waddle. I'm not scared of. I'm not that worried about Richardson, but the Bears defense is for real. It's for real.
What about Raheed Shaheed versus Philadelphia?
Shaheed, I'm riding the way. It's not even a question.
Not even a question.
One ball. We're talking about a guy who needs one ball. He's like Lance Armstrong. He only needs one ball to win the whole thing, okay? So...
Too soon. It went right over my head at first.
Took you a second.
But then it got me. One more name. Tank Dell in Minnesota. Or Waddle.
Dell was almost my start of the week, okay? So...
Really?
I'm a believer that he is going to be back soon. But Waddle's just so good. He's got the money. He's only got one real. Yeah, I'd have to go Waddle. But it's close.
Yeah, I would go Waddle. I would go. All the same ones you did. Shaheed over Waddle, but everyone else was Waddle. So, yeah, maybe I have faith in
Shaheed. Yeah,
I don't have him in any leagues, as you could imagine, but.
Call yourself a fantasy podcast host.
But I don't have him there. Let's go ahead and kick this off. You want to kick us off with the quarterback start of the week?
You're gonna have me bat lead off this time. All right.
I mean, I could start it off if you want.
Let's mix her up.
Always,
Let's mix it
this is
up
my
with
birthday
folks.
gift.
We don't want you don't want to get predictable. You don't want to get formulaic, Colt. All right. Actually, you do in podcasts, but we're gonna mix it up anyway. All right. My quarterback start of the week. I'm gonna partition it because at the end of the day, I was like, I like them both. This is my last chance probably to say Derek Carr. I mean, the horse is already out of the barn. If you have Derek Carr, you're probably starting him here. But it is the Eagles. They are still a Super Bowl contender of sorts, certainly a contender to win the NFC. I could see someone saying, okay, well, am I really going to start him over like Anthony Richardson? I'm starting Derek Carr over Anthony Richardson in multiple leagues this week, folks. It is that serious. For sure. It is that serious. So, yeah, don't worry about like, oh, am my points chasing? No, your points receiving because Derek Carr is going to go get them for you this week. The Eagles are not good enough to slow this down right now. Nobody is, I don't think. So yeah, Carr's a great play, and I'm not. If he blows it up here, we got it. I don't think either one of us can touch him anymore because it's just self-evident. And then I'm going to say Kirk Cousins against the Chiefs. Chiefs defense hasn't done anything against any passing game so far. Lamar Jackson carved him up like a turkey, and Joe Burrow, who just got neutered by the Patriots in the season opener, turn it around like that. So yeah, Cousins at home I think is going to be fine. I would be fine starting either of those guys, and I am starting both of them in leagues.
I heard a stat about Joe Burrow, who is my start of the week, but I'm going to go ahead and start it off with this. But I heard a stat. He is 1-9 in his first 2 weeks of his entire career.
Yeah,
a slow starter, I would say. So yeah, Joe Burrow.
The first 2 games of the season are over. So
it's time.
He should just skip to week 3 every season. Why? He should just take the first 2 weeks off. There
you go. Go on some kind of short-term IR. The Commanders are going to wish they were on IR. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase are coming to town. Well, they're actually playing at home versus the Commanders. Commanders, they've allowed the most passing touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks through the first 2 weeks. They made Daniel Jones look like Danny Dimes. As we know, he was quarterback 4 last week. T. Higgins may play. He may play on Monday Night Football, but even if he doesn't, I'm still excited for Joe Burrow. Like I said, him and Jamar Chase are going to light up the sky on Monday Night Football, which is a weird doubleheader. But yeah, Joe Burrow, it wasn't a name that I thought I'd be throwing up here, but here we are. It starts the week.
Love it. It's, who wouldn't be a little bit nervous after what we saw from Burrow in week 1? Week 2 was a nice bit of reassurance, but yeah, the brief aside, Mike Evans gets 2 touchdowns very quickly against the Commanders in week 1 before the Buccaneers just take their foot off the gas completely. The game was over. Malik Neighbors goes supernova, 10 catches, 127, and a touchdown. He would have had way more if his quarterback wasn't Daniel Jones. And now the table is set for Jamar Chase to command that the Bengals give him the deal against the Commanders. 200 yards is in play. I'm just going to say it. Like the Bengals could absolutely decimate the Commanders through the air. And frankly, for me, if Chase doesn't do it here, especially if Higgins doesn't go, which I don't think he's going to go, if he doesn't do it here, now I'm nervous, okay? Because this is the smash spot. You're at home in primetime against a prone, helpless opponent. Destroy them, Jamar. And if you don't, then I think we got real problems. Honestly, that's how I feel about it.
Let me tell you how he started last year. 5 or 7. This is Jamar Chase. How he started the first 2 weeks of just last year. 5 for 39, 5 for 31, and then in week 3, 12 for 141.
It's coming.
It's coming. It is this week. This is more of an assurance on Jamar Chase than it is Burrow. Burrow is probably already in people's lineups, but I think both are going to have a great week.
Yeah, Tyler Boyd's not on the team to throw touchdowns randomly anymore. So, yeah, it's going to be Burrow throwing them. And you weren't sitting Chase, but you can feel good about having Chase out there, guys. Feel really good. I know I do. No, I love it. My running back start of the week, I am going to go, I'm grabbing a couple ones here. So one of them will be right. But one backfield that has pretty much sucked out loud so far that I think you can safely plug back into lineups here. Javonte or even Jaleel, either of the top 2 Denver running backs at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's 2-0. The Broncos are 0-2. It's in Tampa. Why go near this? Tampa Bay has been a sieve to running backs so far, especially pass-catching running backs. Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery have all had big days against them. They have averaged 15.7 fantasy points in half PPR scoring, mind you, so far. All of them have had at least 3 receptions. All of them have had at least 35 yards receiving. They've all had solid RB2 and high-end flex days. And I just don't see a scenario where the Broncos don't attack that. It's their one path to moving the ball semi-consistently here, I think. So yeah, I love those plays as kind of get-right games for both those running backs. Leaning toward Javonte, of course, but Jaleel could have a day. And then Charbonnet, if Kenneth Walker can't go, which is a total unknown at this point, so you got to keep an eye on it. But if you have Charbonnet, you plugged him in last week. He didn't really do much. He got lucky with a short touchdown after a pass interference in the end zone. Miami has been a sieve on the ground. James Cook just got him for 3 touchdowns on the ground. Tank Bigsby went for 73 on 12 touches against them in week 1. So Charbonnet sets up real nice here. So I like that as a high-end flex play and a perfectly fine RB2 play as well.
Yeah, there's a world where that Seahawks-Dolphins game really gets away from the Dolphins. Like we like Skylar Thompson, but there's a path where even if Kenneth Walker's in there, Charbonnet may have a role. And then Javonte, do I have confidence? I don't even think you have confidence, but there is a path where it can happen. No, but there is a path, and it's funny because the thing we know about the Bucs defense, they used to be a run-stopping defense, and now they're kind of a run funnel. So, yeah, no, I like those ones for sure. Mine's a nasty boy. So if you're going Javonte, I'm going even deeper. I got Chuba Hubbard at the Raiders.
Oh,
yeah, I know. You may be seeing this for the first time. Chuba Hubbard at the Raiders. The Raiders have allowed the 6th most rushing yards to opposing running backs.
Wow.
Chuba looked decent against the Chargers, okay? Their rush defense is kind of middle of the pack. He had over 6 yards a carry. He had double-digit touches. Now you bring in Andy Dalton, and is he the best quarterback in the league? No. Is he below average? Yes. And is he better than Bryce Young? Absolutely. Yeah. So he's just giving a little bit of a life to this offense. And I think it can actually keep them in the game. And like I said, the Raiders defense hasn't really held up to what we thought it was going to be and what we saw at the end of last year. So Chuba Hubbard is my start of the week. I'm just hoping for a top 24 finish.
Right. I mean, if you took Chuba, you're just hoping that he does something that justifies keeping him on your roster. I actually like the pick. It makes total sense. Like, why are the Panthers putting Dalton out there? So that they can have a normal, at least semi-NFL caliber offense again, because they sure as heck didn't the first 2 weeks. So, and Chuba's good. Chuba's pretty good. He's no stud, but he's pretty good.
Good enough.
I wish I was as brave as you. You're a bigger man than I am, Colt, because that you're showing some real you're showing some cojones, some chest hair on this one. But hey, it's your birthday tomorrow. No one can be that mean to you if he has 1 carry for 2 yards.
Miles Sanders had 9 targets in week 3 when he played with Andy Dalton last year. So
who didn't?
Maybe it's a Miles Sanders game, huh?
Who didn't have 9 targets? I'm pretty sure Ricky Kroll had 9 targets week 3 last year. You don't remember him.
That's
Some
true.
Of our listeners will. No, I like it a lot. My wide receiver start of the week, it's Brandon Ayuk against the Rams, and that feels chintzy, but he's been a ghost so far. And you said a couple weeks ago, maybe missing all that time over the summer didn't help, especially Clint Kubiak leaves, goes to New Orleans, so there is some turnover in terms of the passing game coordination in San Francisco. But the Rams have just been destroyed by perimeter, by teams' number 1 receivers. Debo's going to miss this game. Kittle could have a big game too, but I think this is a smash spot for Ayuk, who the Rams have not been able to stop outside receivers, and Ayuk is one of the best in the game, in the business at being and doing exactly that. Honorable mention though for Adam Thielen in particular at the Raiders, and even if you have like a Deontay on your roster that you're feeling real skittish about at this point, and who could blame you? Depending on your situation, I would not hesitate to flex that one in there as well. Thielen had 11 catches for 154 yards in Dalton's start last year. You can't count on that here, but Thielen should, in a full PPR format, Thielen should have himself a nice little bounce back day. Deontay could too.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned Kittle in that as well, because on the Fantasy Index Twitter at Fantasy Index. I don't know if you saw it, but yeah, we put out the stat where it was the 6 games where the 49ers were without Debo, and it showed the splits with Ayuk and with Kittle and Juwan Jennings, because he's worth mentioning. He was on the waiver wire episode. But Kittle, 6 touchdowns in 6 games, and really none of those games were a bust. If he had, I mean, his lowest one was like 23 yards and a touchdown. Like a touchdown, you're excited. But he also had some blow-up games, some monster games, 120 for 2, 149 yards. And then Ayuk, just in that same vein, he really only had 1 bust game. It was 2 for 19, but all the rest of them are like 81 yards and a touchdown, 81, 101 and a touchdown. Like he had a lot of monster games too. So Ayuk should see a bounce back here in week 3.
And let's not forget they're also down one of their top 2 receivers. One of their other top 2 receivers in CMC. Jordan Mason's been great, but he's no CMC. So yeah, it's time for targets to get forced into Ayuk and Kittle's hands, and maybe Juwan.
Absolutely. And the same thing with, it's funny, they're both Panthers, but you're talking about Deontay Johnson is like a fringe start of the week. It's more of like, I want to keep this guy on my roster. Give me some kind of signs of life. And the same thing with Chuba. Like, people probably aren't plugging these guys in, but show me signs of life that you can stay on my roster and maybe make it into my second flex or my first flex. Right. So yeah, I like that one as well. Like I said, I like Andy Dalton as the quarterback for the Panthers. So I'm all aboard on that. Yeah, he should be. This one goes with your start of the week. I'm going Chris Olave versus the Eagles. You kind of already talked about it. The Eagles, they're secondary. I mean, they're allowing the 2nd most receiving touchdowns and 3rd most receiving yards. Monday Night Football, I heard somebody say that on Monday Night Football, the Falcons, they were watching the Eagles, and they said it looked like their secondary put their helmets on backwards because they were just like completely like, whoa, where are they at? Darnell Mooney, there he goes again. So, yeah, I kind of saw that. This is the game that you've been waiting for. This is the game you've been waiting for Olave. You draft him in the 2nd round, maybe 3rd round of your fantasy drafts. This is the week that he puts it all together.
Yeah, it's the Brandon Ayuk argument, like 1-to-1. Like, this is the number 1 receiver on the team. There is no hotter offense on earth than these New Orleans Saints. It is that simple. And the Eagles, they have a lot of talent on defense, but they're not going to shut down opposing passing games. Nobody's shutting down this passing game right now. No.
And the thing I'll say about, because we both like Shaheed, and I like him here this week. I'm not going to ask you Olave or Shaheed because I feel like where you already lean, but Shaheed isn't going to have a 70-yard touchdown every single game where it just like kind of kills a drive. I think the Saints are definitely going to score points, and Shaheed still has a role even if it isn't the deep ball, because he's a pretty complete wide receiver for the most part. He's not just a deep threat guy, but that is a skill set that he excels in. Right. But yeah, Olave or Shaheed.
You're asking me? I mean,
I'm asking for a friend.
Look at who has carved up Philly so far. Jaden Reed, Darnell Mooney at the end there. I got to go Shaheed. It's when you can do whatever you want, what you've been doing is probably what you're going to keep doing. So, yeah. But Olave, maybe the Eagles show up big time, force the Saints to at least slow down, and at that point, Olave's back on the radar for sure. He's already on the radar. He's back. He's back in the saddle for sure.
I think this is the 2nd highest over under the week, anyways. So yeah, a lot of points can be scored.
Saints defense is pretty good too. I don't know. The Eagles should score some points. I will just real brief aside. The Rams have iced slot receivers so far. They erased Amon-Ra St. Brown in week 1. Greg Dortch barely even was on the field against them in week 2. Juwan Jennings out of the slot, I'm not sure I'm into that. There are some guys who are like, oh, Juwan Jennings, easy wide receiver 3 stats this week. I'm not so sure. The one thing the Rams defense is doing well is stopping guys inside. My tight end start of the week, I'm going to go with Colby Parkinson. I know he has burned us so far, but like he hung you out to dry.
Good luck
last week. But Kupp gets hurt and the whole game plan goes out the window, and he might have been caught up. He might have been collateral damage. He's been on the field nonstop, kind of like a Cade Otton. Like, you're on the field this much, eventually some good things are going to happen. The Rams need somebody to step up here. And you know how I feel about Jordan Whittington. I got my tinfoil hat on tight for Jordan Whittington. But if I take it off for a second and put on, pants and make myself presentable to the outside world as a civilian in good standing, Colby Parkinson probably makes more sense. He is already established in the offense. There's still no who's the tight end? Higbee. There's still no Higbee in sight here. They need somebody to take some receptions because there's so many that have been vacated by the loss of Nakua and Kupp. So, and against the Niners, the Niners have not been shutting anybody down. Like the Vikings, I mean, obviously they beat them, and Darnold had no trouble getting mostly whatever he wanted. Even the Jets, like, considering it was week 1, it was in San Francisco, they did not shut the Jets down. So I'm not that scared of the Niners secondary right now. I think Parkinson, probably a week late, gives you that kind of sleazy 6 catches for 70-yard type line here.
So a career day?
Yeah.
Maybe for... There we go. That's the first time we've ever heard that on this podcast. So my tight end start of the week is a guy who through 2 games has 6 receptions and 46 yards and a touchdown. He is the tight end 7 on the year. His name is Kyle Pitts. He is an athletic freak, and he is playing at home versus the Chiefs. I'm going to say it here. We're going to say it multiple times. Target the Chiefs defense with your tight ends. Maybe not next week. It's like Hayden Hurst. If you want to go real deep. But I know that's what I was kind of thinking too. But target the Chiefs defense. Isaiah Likely went off against them in week 1. Everybody saw that primetime game. It's like over 100 yards, just absolutely lit them on fire. And then Mike Gesicki in week 2. Gesicki had an amazing day in week 2.
Oh yeah,
he hasn't had 7 catches or 91 yards in a game since 2021. It has been a long time for Gesicki, and that's just kind of a testament to a little bit of opportunity. But the Chiefs' defense against tight ends, it's not good. Kyle Pitts, fire him up.
Likely and Gesicki are poor man's versions of Kyle Pitts. Yeah, I mean it makes too much sense to not start. I mean, whatever. You drafted Pitts in the 5th, 6th round. You start him anyway.
Yeah.
But kind of like with Chase, massive vote of confidence here. You have every right to expect a huge day here. And again, kind of like with Chase, if we don't get it, then something is not right because you're at home. You are gonna be in a game script where you're gonna need to be throwing. The one concern is like the Chiefs pass rush. Chris Jones could hobble the Falcons passing game, kind of like the Steelers did in week 1. But I'm not particularly worried about it. They held up fine against the Eagles on Monday Night Football. So I love that play for sure. And then my DST of the week. This is a defense that after getting to tear apart, a AAA offense last week, people said, okay, well, that was fun. Throw them back on the waiver wire. I'm going and scooping up the Chargers against the Steelers in week 3. Now, this is a little bit dependent on your league scoring. If your league is, doesn't particularly reward low points and low total yards allowed, then kind of take this with a grain of salt. But the Chargers are allowing like 220 yards of offense a game. Granted, they played the Raiders and the Panthers. But these are the Steelers. Mike Tomlin Steelers against Jim Harbaugh's Chargers. This game is going to be straight out of 1995. They're going to punch each other in the guts for 15 rounds, and then it's going to come down to a field goal, and someone's going to win 13-10. I mean, that's what is happening. They've already shaken hands privately and agreed. This is the game we're going to play, right? Oh yeah, no, 100%. I love the Chargers here as kind of a post stream of the week. I mean, they've been good. No one scored on them, and the Steelers aren't scoring on anybody. It just makes too much sense to me, even on the road.
It is the lowest over-under of the week. I don't know if you know the line. Do you want to guess it? If you don't,
there's no way it's over 30. Is it over 30?
It's over 30. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, 33.5.
35.5.
Oh wow, even higher. Okay.
Can you bet in your state? You might want to go go rushing to the casino and make this bet.
Under, and I'll put my kids' college fund on it because
Yeah. Well, if you thought that one was bad, I've got one of the lower over-unders of the week as well with my defense. I think you called it earlier in the week the Poop Bowl. I don't remember exactly what you called it.
Puke.
Yeah. Either way,
not that crazy.
I don't want to look. I don't want to look at this game. It is the Browns versus the Giants. The Browns DST. We're kind of beating up on Daniel Jones. I had already kind of talked about him a little bit with the Joe Burrow and how he carved up the Commanders, but I don't know if you knew the stat. Maybe you did, but the Giants offense has been struggling, and the Giants became the first team in NFL history to lose a regulation game despite scoring 3 touchdowns and not allowing a single touchdown. Like, I personally love Daniel Jones as a football player. I just think he really never put it all together. He's got the skill set to do it as far as like athleticism. But the Browns, I mean, their stellar defense in week 3, it's not coming together here. in week 3 either.
That history being made by really any other quarterback but Daniel Jones just wouldn't have been appropriate.
Right.
It's so
right.
uniquely him. You know, people say you're beating up on Daniel Jones too much. I say we're not beating up on him enough. It's been 6 years of this crud, okay? And even with Neighbors, you pour 18 targets at the guy. He's only able to catch 10 because, you know, a lot of them just are not where they need to be. And this is against the Commanders' defense, the worst, one of the 2 or 3 worst secondaries in the league for sure, and quite possibly the worst. You still find a way to lose this game. And I mean, now we've got 2 quarterbacks who they're on the plank. You know, they were, after week 1 disasters, they were both marched onto the plank and they were getting ready to walk it. They took a couple steps back towards safety after week 2 performances. One of these teams, well, the Browns are 1-1. The Giants could be 0-3, and it could be time to just make it stop. And if Daniel Jones embarrasses Deshaun Watson here, who Daniel Jones already has a disastrous contract, whoever loses this game, the music is going to slow down a lot, and it's already been slowing for both of them. So
you know what? I agree with you. We really haven't. Maybe we should beat up on Daniel Jones some more. My sit of the week at quarterback is Daniel Jones at the Browns. I just don't want the casuals to get false hope after he had a quarterback 4 finish last week. No. Like, that was against the Commanders. We've hit it over and over again. The Browns defense, the quarterbacks are averaging under 200 passing yards per game, and they've only allowed 1 passing touchdown on the season. If you see a 1.5 passing touchdown line for Daniel Jones anywhere, certainly bet the under on that. So, we've beat up on him enough. Who is your quarterback sit of the week?
I'm going to go Geno versus Miami. I think that the Miami secondary has not given us a reason to doubt them yet. Again, they hobbled Trevor Lawrence in the opener. They erased the Buffalo passing game. That may have just been because the Bills didn't need to throw, but that the same basics recipe could break out here, where the Seahawks get a 2-score lead early on, and the Dolphins can't punch their way back into the game. So yeah, I think Geno again had a big game last week, and had a 34-yard rushing touchdown in the opener against the Broncos. Look, that was exciting. I don't think there's a lot of upside here. I think he's only thrown for 2 touchdowns so far too, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I'm not loving it. Who running back sit of the week? Who you got?
I got everybody's waiver wire hero. I got Carson Steele at the Falcons. Atlanta, they've allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. Carson Steele, I mean, is he your favorite for the Kansas City backfield dart throws?
I said P. Ryan. I'll stick with P. Ryan, but
okay, yeah,
you can say Jerick McKinnon.
He's my favorite dart throw. I don't want to figure it out in week 1 of the new 6 to 8 weeks that we're waiting. Yep. I'm going to let it kind of level out, see what's going on here this week. Again, it's not against a great defensive matchup either. So, for running backs. So yeah, Carson Steele is staying on my bench. By all means, I'm trying to look at other options, especially in like a PPR league. Like you've got a million other options there.
Yeah, Jesse Bates, safety for the Falcons, is a bad man. He had the game-ending pick against the Eagles on Monday night. My running back sit of the week kind of feels like a cheapie, but there was hope of one last great sleaze scumbag RB3 campaign for Zeke here. And those hopes are quickly dwindling. Nobody's run on the Ravens yet. The Cowboys have the Ravens at home for week 3. The Ravens desperately need this game. Zeke ain't going nowhere on these guys. Stay away. Stay far away.
Yeah, Zeke isn't a guy. I mean, just that backfield in general. It's something I want to.
Not a big fan of Dowdle.
Something I want to see it kind of smooth out as well. At wide receiver, I got Jaden Reed. I had to double check to see if I had him as my sit of the week last week. I didn't. Sadly, I had DK Metcalf, but we also talked about how it's one play that could kind of make your day. Metcalf had a day, but Jaden Reed at the Titans, if there's a small chance that Love plays in this game. I certainly don't think that he does, and I think it's almost positively coach speak. But if the Packers want to win this game, they want to keep the ball out of Malik Willis's hand, just as they did last week. Do you know how many times they ran the ball last week?
A lot. Was it a lot?
That's exactly right. 53 times they ran the ball to 14 pass attempts. I'm going to repeat that again. 53 times they ran the ball. I think it was Josh Jacobs had like 32, 33 carries. Like everybody got a carry on the offense.
Proud. Oh, man.
They were running the ball nonstop. So that doesn't bode well for Jaden Reed. And then the Titans, I mean, this feels like a puke bowl. I don't know. I don't really look at the Green Bay Packers as like a complete team when Jordan Love's not there. Maybe that's me and just hating on Malik Willis all the time, but
they're definitely not a complete team without Jordan Love. No, but the Titans defense is pretty good. Like they wiped the floor with Caleb every bit as hard as Houston did in week 1, and they certainly slowed the Jets down in week 2. The Titans defense looks perfectly respectable. Why go near it here when Reed might only see 3 or 4 targets on the day? No, 100%. Malik Willis revenge game could be loading, though. That's the only.
Oh, okay.
That's the only potential fly in that ointment.
Does he throw his first passing touchdown?
His second. He got one to Wicks.
Reed.
He got one to Wicks.
Oh yeah, he did.
Last week.
Yeah,
sir.
Yeah, you're right.
Respect on his name. My wide receiver sit of the week is a guy who actually, in general, we need to start taking more seriously. Okay, this guy, 3rd in the NFL in terms of first read percentage for his team. So of the targets that have been distributed to players on that team, he has the 3rd largest share of first read targets. I'm talking about Quentin Johnston of the Chargers. He might be emerging as the top receiver here. He might. But this is not the week to see if it's real. He had 2 touchdowns for like 51 yards against the Panthers last week. That was against a team that was getting ready to just lose all will to fight. The Steelers could not be more the polar. All they want to do is fight. All they want to do is kick your teeth into the parking lot, okay? So this is not the time to mess around. They have shut down number 1 receivers. Quentin Johnston ain't really a number 1, really. Certainly not yet. So, yeah, don't mess around. Don't chase last week. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, Quentin Johnston, everybody picked him up on the waiver wires for the most part in every single one of my leagues. And again, it's just I want to see that passing volume go up. Yeah, I don't think Herbert's thrown for 200 yards in a single game so far this season. It's just they want to run the ball, and they've been successful running the ball. So why go away from it? It's somebody I'm not trying to start if possible. Another person I'm not trying to start, and we really looked at this person as somebody who might be a cheat code for fantasy, but Taysom Hill versus the Eagles. He hasn't been that Swiss Army knife that we really wanted him to be. He's been fringe playable. Like you're just hoping that he does, kind of goes off. Like his ceiling's still pretty high, but Eagles, they're top 10 worst for tight ends, and he just came off the field with a chest injury, went to the hospital, if you remember that. I'm trying to throw him back where he belongs, back to waivers, to be honest. I mean, the tight end landscape is very grim, but yeah, Taysom Hill is not somebody that'll be starting on any of my rosters in week 3.
And I was just bought in on the Taysom Hill.
We all were.
Theory that, oh my God, now it's really going to happen. Through 2 weeks, he looks like a very, very fancy Kyle Juszczyk to me. Like that's kind of how they're using him because that's what the Niners did. That's what the Niners do with Juszczyk is he's a fullback, but he's like one of the fun fullbacks in the league that will actually catch a ball or 2 a week. That's kind of the trajectory that it feels like Taysom is on now. So yeah, that doesn't have any place on your roster for the foreseeable future. You gave me some pushback on this, and I like that. This guy just had a big game, so why not stick with him? Mike Gesicki at home for the Commanders. I'm saying that's a sit. I'm saying you do not chase these points that he just had against the Chiefs. And yes, you think the Commanders are really the number 1 defense against tight ends just because that's what a lot of websites are saying right now? No, I don't buy that at all. That's nonsense. Jamar Chase is going to get the football a lot here, and then the Bengals are going to be up by a lot of points, and they're going to start running the ball. I don't see a need for Gesicki to see the ball, and there's an outside chance that T. Higgins plays. So there was a need served last week. I don't think that need exists here. I think Gesicki's target, likely from week 1 to week 2, the same thing's going to happen from week 2 to week 3 for Gesicki here. Don't chase the points. Is that's where I'm at with it.
Have the Bengals had the lead in a lot of games so far this season? I'll go ahead and help you out with that. They played the Patriots. It wasn't a good inning for them, and then against the Chiefs,
they did
wasn't a good ending for them.
They did lead against the Chiefs,
right? But not by like 14, 21 points or something. I think that you're thinking of Gesicki, and you think that Higgins is going to be out. That's my biggest thing. I'm on the fence. I don't know if he starts. It's way too early in the week. It's Wednesday, so. I am a little bit more on board with yours if Higgins starts. If he doesn't, I like Mike Gesicki. I mean, I'm a little biased. I'm starting him in a league yet again on hopes that T. Higgins doesn't start. But
you can't fault you.
Exactly. It's always so hard when we write these dockets of like, who do I want to put as my start? My tight end start of the week. No one. Who do I want to put as my sit? Everyone. Like that. I don't know if you have that dilemma, but I'm just kind of venting. It is so hard to write in the tight end position. I'm always like, I have confidence in no one. Like I wanted to put who was it? I think I wanted to put Dalton Kincaid as my sit of the week, but the tight end landscape says somebody in your league is playing him because all the rest of them are bad. It's not a great matchup. It's more of a temper expectations, but yeah, I digress. Tight ends, I hate
Kincaid for Greg Dulcich, guys. Sorry. That's just not
exactly. I'm going to go here with this next one. The Texans. I'm setting the Texans at the Vikings. The Texans, they've took advantage of, rookie quarterback Caleb Williams and the Bears. Their top 8 defense so far on the season. Minnesota, they looked legit on both sides of the ball. But, the offense, I know there's been some slow-mo replays coming out of Sam Darnold throwing some passes that he shouldn't have on Twitter. But their defense is legit, and I think their offense is legit. So this might be a little bit of a back and forth affair between the two teams.
My only concern there is that D'Amico Ryans is off of the Kyle Shanahan tree. He's going to be watching the tape of what the Niners did against them last week, seeing how Darnold beat it and putting wrinkles on it. So I'm not a super big fan of playing Vikings here, other than Justin Jefferson, obviously, for that reason. The Texans' defense has come a long way, but they're still not, one of like the most talented units in the league or anything like that. Will Anderson can play. But yeah, no, I mean, at the same time, the Darnold Vikings look for real. I mean, who knows if they wind up winning 10 or 11 games, maybe the Vikings have a quarterback controversy on their hand in 2025. So, yeah, I mean, it could happen real fast. Like J.J. McCarthy is a very young man. So no, I like that set. Mine, I'm going to go with the Eagles for, reasons that should be fairly readily apparent, but the Eagles, one of the higher drafted fantasy defenses out there for sure, for good reason. Don't push your luck here. Don't start him just because, well, I took him in the, in the third to the last round. I got to start him. No, you don't. Not here. Not here you don't. Don't mess with these Saints right now, guys. It ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. The Saints are going to cut through the Eagles for 30, 35, 40 points. You will be on the other end of that if you start the Eagles. Don't do it. Find another way. Go get the Chargers.
I like this pick, and I mean, to be honest, I'm going to roll with your sits of the week. You said sit the 49ers defense last week, which was a lot of, if you look at really any website, they were number 1 or number 2. And you know what they ended last week? They tied with 12th, which would have been 14th. It kind of swung another way. So, I mean, is it a top 12? Yeah, but it was certainly a temper expectations thing. And yeah, the Eagles won here. They've been susceptible, to say the least.
They held their own against the Falcons most of the way last week before it got away from them. But I mean, it's the Saints. That's what it's about. Is like until somebody stops them, I'm assuming that no one's going to be the first to stop them. So, yeah, I'm not messing with it. Personally, I'm not messing with it.
I got you there. All right, that's it. That's it for our start and sit episode. I'm excited for this weekend. Not only is it birthday weekend, but I just want to kind of see. I feel pretty good about these starts and sits. The Chuba Hubbard one is making me sweat a little bit. It's based on logic. And this, I finally feel like we're to the point in the season where we actually have some meaningful data. The first week, we're the experts, but we're guessing too. We're guessing just like you guys. It's been 9 months since we saw football. Now I feel like we have the wind at our backs. You can really start to lock our picks in, especially Colts. Colts picks will never, ever be wrong. So you can just happy birthday, buddy. I feel good about the Kyle Pitts one, but I wanted to say that it's never going to be wrong for the guy who's not scored over 25 yards in a game so far this season. I feel really good about that one. Wish Colt a happy birthday, folks. Get at him on the @_Colt Williams on Twitter. Shoot him some birthday well wishing. I am at DLuke87 if you want to chat us up about this, that, or the other. And don't forget, Super Fanatic newsletter package will get you all of the Fantasy Index's best insights, analysis, waiver wire advice, starts and sits, who thrives against zone coverage, who thrives against man coverage, the X's and O's, in-depth analysis that can be the difference between winning and losing every week. FantasyIndex.com/store. Go get yourself, treat yourself.
treat your fantasy team to some dubs, to some wins. All right, guys, we will be back with you next week to unpack another week of, I'm sure, will be zany craziness when Jordan Whittington comes off with 12 receptions for 140 yards next week, and I have a stroke live on air. So that'll be fun.
We will see you guys next week.
This has been the Fantasy Index Podcast. For more great content, premium rankings, and cheat sheets, head over to fantasyindex.com